Hey, I hope everybody's doing well. Doing a quick video today just to talk about some changes on the channel and different directions I'm kind of going in. So as I upload more videos, people will, not be confused about the intent and purposes behind everything. You have to bear with me a little bit. I just done like an hour and a half of cardio today. There's no weight training today, so no boxing and no rowing, so it's just low intensity cardio and getting in a lot of steps. So continuing the training phases and everything, and that's going tremendously well. So, um, but so you might have noticed I did a video this week, and it was, what if Russia nukes Ukraine? And it was what I consider, there's videos that I'm going to put out that are for nuclear war simulation enthusiasts, and these are ones that are more long form, more time is put into them, and they try to go for some level of realism as much as it can be in a simulation, but what would be considered more plausible scenarios. It's still there's always a level of implausibility because the idea of a nuclear exchange is fairly implausible for reasons I've detailed in previous videos. But even your most craziest megalomaniac out there, they want to stay in power, and it's going to be hard to stay in power if nuclear missiles are flying everywhere. So there's always that kind of safeguard. At least once multiple nations became armed with nuclear weapons. Of course, the only time they've been used in a war was World War II, and only one country had nuclear weapons. And so once other countries became involved in it, it did a pretty good job of preventing peer-to-peer nations from engaging in open war. Having said that, there's always that risk of escalation, and that's some of the comments I've had recently where there's more and more of a cavalier attitude towards it, and one of the purposes of making these videos is to remind people of the destructive capability that in a short amount of time, huge amount of losses. But there's going to be videos that are long form like that for what I consider enthusiasts, and then there's going to be more for mass consumption. Those are going to be more simpler videos, usually shorter in duration for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And it's really to kind of express a high level message that, these weapons are out there. And we saw with that video, if you've seen the Ukraine video, that the amount of destruction that, if Russia expended its entire arsenal, it would be unreal. I mean, you would just, a level of devastation would be, off the charts. And so there's going to be those videos. And there's some, I did a short as well. Some very, so trying to broaden the horizon to expand, because what I'd like for is those people that get attracted due to the more mass consumption videos, then start looking into the more in-depth, enthusiast videos. So that's the goal behind it, is to try to expand that. Look, you look at Nuclear War Simulator, there's several people have made videos, and I'll be honest with you, most of them are terrible. And this isn't me being arrogant. It's just they're made for mass consumption, and they just went off baseline levels, so they're not accurate. The base simulation, the forces in it, is hugely inaccurate compared to what's actually deployed. And so I've spent a lot of time fixing that. When I started making them with Nuclear War Simulator, I was guilty of the same thing because I really didn't know better. And then I spent more and more time learning, okay, what's actually in the sim, learning how to work the sim, learning how to update the forces, because it wasn't very straightforward. And so then I used the knowledge I have with nuclear war and, based on best estimates and everything, to update it. So now, when you see my videos, they're about as up to date as you can, at least based on the Federation of Atomic Scientists estimates on what countries have what forces, at least for 2024. And so on. Like I did the Cuban Missile Crisis Goes Hot. Those were best estimates of what the United States and the Soviet Union had, and what was deployed in Cuba, and what was available. So there's a tremendous amount of effort to be as accurate as possible with that stuff. And when you look at a lot of the videos people put out, some of them with a lot of views, they're just off the base sim. And like I said, it really wasn't a lot of, maybe in the post-production was a lot of effort and probably blew me away. To be honest with you, I'm still learning the whole video editing thing. But I can say with utmost certainty that the effort to actually present a more realistic scenario, or at least realistic forces, mine blows them away by large. So I haven't uploaded any of the mods, any of the stuff I've done, because I haven't felt like I've gotten 100% there. There's still some small things like, I feel like, when it comes to Israel and a few other things, like I really need to get a better understanding, and there's a lot of still guesswork involved in some of the stuff. But I do plan on uploading it so other people, if they want to make videos, they're content creators, they'll have a better baseline to start from. Because like I said, I'm not trying to hoard the market or anything, just trying to educate people as best I can on some of the dangers, but keeping it still some level of realism, because I don't want to turn the whole thing like Annie Jacobson, which it just comes in sensationalism. Sorry, I mean, she's talked to a lot of very regarded people in the defense industry, and so I'm not trying to take pot shots, but she's trying to sell books and stuff and trying to make money by sensationalism versus a more grounded in realism kind of thing. So you're going to see both those videos. One thing I'm going to do, even in my enthusiast level videos, probably going to be doing less talking. So the video and stuff is going to be more displayed, and probably some just, music in the background, stuff like that. Thing is, I've done a lot of videos, talked a lot. I'm not a talker. I'm a much better writer than I am a talker. I'll probably still do some. We're going to see more and more, just like the one with the Ukraine, where things were typed out on screen versus talking in the background. So going to move more towards that. Now, of course, still going to do these videos where I talk about stuff. I'm still going to do the working sessions. So if you want to see how I come together with the stuff, but when I start talking about attack plans, stuff like that, it's just going to be displayed up on the screen versus me going through. Because again, the videos get kind of long, and I think people outside of the real, enthusiast level kind of just lose sight of it. So I'm trying to make even the more in-depth videos still more digestible by people that may not, their interest in nuclear warfare is kind of low on the totem pole, which is the vast majority of people. I mean, who wants to think about this stuff, all the time? Because I know I had a colleague, and I sent him a video I did. He's like, "This is depressing." And I said, nuclear war really isn't meant to be uplifting. Maybe the after effects, the Mad Max, post-apocalyptic, that can be kind of cool sometimes. But nobody really wants to go through that, I mean, unless you really want to wear chaps and, football shoulder pads spray painted black with spikes in it and stuff, then maybe you do. Little bone to pick. A lot of people like to say, I don't want to get, buttless chaps, trying to keep the cursing out of this, which is a new thing for me. But that doesn't make any sense. All chaps are buttless. If they weren't, they'd just be pants. So you don't need to specify that they're buttless chaps. Chaps are chaps. If they had material around that, they'd just be pants. So that's all. Just wanted to touch base, and people saw, the video, and I put a pinned comment on that video. The Russia-Ukraine wasn't meant to be a plausible scenario. It was just meant to be a demonstration, a visual form of the destructive capability of countries like Russia and the United States with their nuclear stockpiles, and to China to a greater degree, and France and United Kingdom to progressively lesser degrees, but even countries with a more modest stockpile, like a India or a Israel, still hold a tremendous capability to deal death, and that's not a good thing. It's not a positive thing. Ideally speaking, and there was some idealism around this, but we've unfortunately, if there was complete and total nuclear disarmament, which I don't think we're anywhere remotely close to that, although it did seem like at least at one point there was some lip service paid to it. But if there was, the chances of a peer-to-peer conflict would rise tremendously. But even if it was a peer-to-peer conflict, there would still be, much less casualties if nuclear weapons were involved. But I could see for a country like, Russia, that if there wasn't nuclear weapons on the table, what if NATO and the United States got involved and even made, pushed towards Moscow or something, that their country could, they could feel their, nationhood being at risk or whatever. And unfortunately, we can say, well, despots and authoritarian governments, everybody can justify their actions. But we've seen with countries without nuclear weapons, and they were toppled and stuff, and probably not, had they had nuclear weapons, it wouldn't have happened. So you can take that whatever way. And a lot of times the authoritarian regimes, when they've been toppled, hasn't necessarily had a positive effect in some ways afterwards. There's a lot of chaos and a lot of things, unfortunately, that happened after the fact, that we see that it's not always been a net positive for the average citizen in these places. Now, it's not justified. I mean, like Saddam Hussein and chemical weapon attack on the Kurds. I mean, it's heavily nuanced, but, look for the average person there, how much they had to deal with from 2003 and, even up till now. It was a lot. So, whereas nuclear weapons are not a good thing per se, but they've also potentially saved a lot of lives up to this point until they don't. So that's where I'm kind of getting at. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Tomorrow should be World War III, Week 3. Should be complete. And that'll wrap up that series. And I'll be working on the next one. So enjoy. Have a great night.